Hi, I'm Trisha at Club Scrap and welcome to the Accordion Book in a Box workshop. As usual, we're going to follow the same typical routine. We'll take the contents of a Club Scrap page kit, in this case, the bandana page kit. We will follow some very specific paper trimming instructions, and that's probably the most tedious part of our whole process. So I hope I don't lose you. And then after that, we'll score and assemble all of those pieces into a beautiful handmade book that lives in a box that has a little sleeve on it. It's a really cool project. The best part is once you learn how to make this project, you can make it again and again with additional supplies and materials you may have on hand or with any other Club Scrap page kit. We have a lot of different themes to choose from, and we create a brand new one every single month. So just a word of warning, if you want to try to keep up with me, that's fine. Maybe you've already gotten a start after taking a look at the instructions that we've included with the kit. That's fine. Otherwise, I just recommend watching the project get made and then follow the video once again, which will continue to be available as long as you need it, and then make the project at your very own pace. Everyone has a different pace. Mine's probably pretty quick. If yours is too, come and join me. Otherwise, sit back, relax, and let's get started. This is the Accordion Book in a Box project, and then you'll just pull this out of the drawer. Inside you'll find the album, and that can be decorated any way you wish. It could be a little book that you write in, a travel journal, lots and lots of real estate here to decorate. You can add even more embellishments that of course are included in the kit. I kept mine kind of simple and just easy to make so you would feel like, yeah, I can do this. I can make this. All right, so I have my bandana page kit here. Also, you need the little piece of hardware for that awesome little clasp on the outside, the little knob to pull the drawer out of the sleeve. So I'm gonna set all of this aside and grab my paper trimmer, and we'll need to just isolate the papers that came in your kit. First, let's do a little sorting. We will start out by finding from this gorgeous collection of bandana papers 2 sheets of this soft white, and you'll see right away it has a beautiful texture to it. It's a cover weight, and then 2 sheets of the aqua. And I just find it's easier to sort the papers up front than it is to just grab them one by one. Then the 2 black papers will be trimmed, followed by both reds. Then a sheet of this paisley print, just put that face down. A sheet of the scarf print, face down. And then back to the paisley and scarf, face down. And then finally, you have 2 sheets of cut aparts. The first one I have listed here is this one. We may or may not trim those together. I'm not sure how much time we'll have, and I don't want to make this the highest priority because you can just see these need to be trimmed apart. The instructions are written out for you. There's also a sheet of die cuts included in this kit that we probably won't use. So for now, I'm going to set that aside. Take the whole pile that we sorted out and flip it back over to find the soft white textured paper on top part. Now I'm using my favorite trimmer here. If you are interested in grabbing my favorite trimmer, we do carry these, as well as this accordion pocket file. And if you don't have this, that's okay. Just assign it to a pile by the same name. So pocket A, pile A, whatever, okay? So that just helps reduce the confusion of all the pieces we will be trimming right now. So this has a little lip here. I'm gonna put that under my trimmer base, and that way it's ready for me to add things to each pocket according to their future use in the project. Next, we are going to trim the inside pages for our accordion book. And since the paper will be folded, we need to know the grain direction of the paper. So to find that, I like to hold the paper by the center of an edge and just study the behavior of the paper. If I wiggle it, a lot of you have heard this before. And then this side, if I hold it by this edge, it's really stiff. This side is really wiggly. If you're in doubt, just give it a push in each direction and you'll feel some resistance this way, and it pushes right in easily this way. So when you plop this in your trimmer, have it to push easily from the top to the bottom of the trimmer, and repeat that for the other sheet of soft white as well. So that should flop easily from top to bottom when you place it in your trimmer. The arrow is also an indicator on the diagram. So if the grain direction matters, I'll have the arrow in your instructions. And hold on to your hats, everybody. We're going to trim both at the same time at a really tough number, 6. Just plain old 6. So I'm going to find that whole number 6, making sure I'm looking at the inches, not the centimeters. Stabilize very firmly on this clear bar as we cut the 80-pound cover weight paper. And there you have 4 inside pages for your book that need to be scored. So let's set these aside for now. We won't file them yet. I have a little pile over here to the right. And then I'm going to check the grain direction on the Aqua. Definitely flops this way, so both pieces go in, again flopping top to bottom. And once again, we'll trim at 6 inches. And now we have the final 4 pages of our accordion book. So if I just open this up very quickly, I'll show you. Inside, you can see the soft white and aqua pages in your book. Setting this aside to be scored, we're moving on to 1 sheet of black. This time I'm going to check the grain. Here's my floppy side. I want the paper to flop or bend easily from left to right when we put it in the trimmer. And our first cut here will be at 11 1/4. So 11, go to the left 1 column to find 11 1/4. And then hang there with me. We've got 10, just 10. This is going to become the box. Okay, so I'm going to set that aside to be scored. And you've got these 2 pieces that fell off the end. The skinny one is a scrap. I'm just going to put that in pocket or pile D. This piece I'm going to trim at 5 3/4. 5 3/4. That's 1 column away from the 6. And I'm going to place this in pocket A. That's going to become the spine of our book. And this other little scrap that fell from the end is a scrap for pocket D. Let's take the other sheet of black. And this time I want it flexing from top to bottom again. And we're going to make the sleeve of our box. So we'll cut at 6 1/4. So 1 column to the left of the 6 to grow that number. Ta-da! So you can set that on top of your scoring pile. And then the piece that fell off the end, we'll trim it horizontally at 11 1/4, 7 1/2, and 3 3/4. That gives us 3 pieces the same size, and we're going to place those in pocket C. And you have a little scrap that fell off the end. I'll add it to D in case I decide to use it later on. Moving to page 2 of our instructions with 1 sheet of red. I'm just going to push it. This red is nice and sturdy. And I want it dipping easily top to bottom again. So this is the way it pushes in most easily, and drop it down. Another tough one for you. We've got 6. Okay, then rotate one of these 6 by 12s, and we're going to cut it on all the even numbers. That's 10, 8, 6, 4, and 2. Okay, so these all are going to be scored. All these 2 by 6s, they're going to be hinges to hold our accordion pages together, putting those in the score pile. Then the remaining 6 by 12 we'll cut again at 10. And then this is going to be your favorite number here, 9 5/8. So to find that, you look at the 9, and then you go to the left 1 column, that's 9 1/4. 1 more column to the left is 9 1/2. And then halfway between 9 1/2 and 9 3/4 is 9 5/8. Okay, this is going to be our book cover. I'm setting it aside to be scored. You have a tiny strip that fell. That's a 3/8 inch strip. And then 1 more of these 2 by 6 hinges. That needs to be scored, so I'm setting that aside. Our next sheet of red, this paper will not be folded, so we don't need to worry about the grain direction. How cool is that? Let's cut at 11 3/4. It's 1 column away from the 12. And then again at 6. Nice even number there. Rotate the 6 by 12. Trim at 10 1/2. 9 1/4. 8 and 4. All right, what we just made now are the little panels to go on the outside of your sleeve. So I kind of like to share that with you, that every cut we're making isn't just arbitrary. It all has a purpose, and it's designed to waste as little paper as possible. So all of these pieces, the 2 larger ones that are the same, the 2 smaller ones that are the same, go in pocket B as in Bravo, and there is a little scrap. I'm going to pop that in D again in case I decide to use that later. Then the next strip, now this one's 5 3/4 by 12. It should be to the right of your trimmer. We'll cut that at 11 1/4, 7 1/2, 3 3/4. These three pieces that you made are all the same and go in pocket C. And we had a little guy that fell off the end and a strip. I'll add it to D in case I decide to use it later on. For this next print, it doesn't really matter so much how you put it in the trimmer, but I'm just gonna do it in a certain way so that, I don't know, you can follow along with me or just do your own thing. It's totally up to you. I have this mapped out as carefully as I can. So you can see how I have mine positioned if you're using this particular kit. Otherwise, whatever print you're using, it probably would be best if it feels like the top of it is here or here, because the book is vertical and we're making panels that will end up being vertical, if that makes any sense. All right, so I'm gonna start out at 11 1/2. I wrote the instructions for this kit. And 5 3/4. That's why I always recommend just making the project first, you know what I'm saying? Okay, so then I want you to rotate this paper so that this blue area with this big medallion here is on the right. We'll cut at 11 and 5 1/2. Rotate the 5 1/2 inch piece. We'll cut at 10 1/2, 7, and 3 1/2. Making some book covers now. So 2 of these pieces will become your book covers. It doesn't matter which one really. I'm going to put 2 of them in pocket A and the other one in C. There is a little scrap for D, and then we'll trim this at 11 1/4, 7 1/2, 3 3/4. I say those numbers a lot in that order. 3 panels the same. Once again, pocket C. Those are all the panels, and they add a lot of like strength to the book. And these are more scraps you can play with later. And now we have this paisley print again. So now this is in the upper right corner. We'll cut at 11 1/2 and 5 3/4. And we have 2 pieces the same size. You can stack them. And we'll trim at 11 1/4, 7 1/2, and 3 3/4. We use those numbers a lot because we just made 6 panels the same size for pocket C. And again, 2 tiny little scraps. This is the last sheet of regular paper we need to trim. So we're going to cut at 11 1/2, 5 3/4. If you want, you can stack these. One idea would be to mirror them so that the whites are, the back of the paper is facing itself so that the paper doesn't slide as easily. And we'll cut at 11 1/4, last time, 7 1/2, 3 3/4. All this decorative stuff, right? And you can just turn everything the right direction. Beautiful. And pop that in pocket C with all of your panels there. Now, these are the cut aparts, and in the instructions, it shows you exactly what to trim at. And I'll probably just speed through this so you can kind of see what that's like. But I'm going to start out by removing the paper outside of the corner cutting guides. As you can see, there's a little guide here that I want to remove. Oh, I forgot to take my scraps from the previous piece, put them in pocket D. And so I'm going to just trim a little bit off the end. I usually leave a little and then I rotate. And with this particular trimmer, I can now easily see the hash mark here at the top and the bottom corner of the cut apart. And this just brings it down to a nice 12 by 12 for me. And that way there are no hash marks on anything. It's a nice, clean, beautiful sheet of cut aparts. And I get rid of all those scraps. And then I just follow the numbers in the instructions and trim these into strips. And then I just will use the magic of technology to speed through that process. can gather up all those pieces and place them in pocket D with all your decorative potential, and repeat the same process for the other sheet of cut aparts. You'll have a few more twists and turns to follow while you trim these. Just kind of be mindful of the artwork and making sure the blade doesn't slice through any images. Okay, that's all the trimming. So I'm going to swap out my trimmer for one of my other favorite necessities, the Score Pal. And now we're going to go back and address that big pile of stuff we've set aside to be scored. So there should be a piece of, it's going to be in your case red if you're using the kit for the first time with me, the assigned kit for this project, 9 5/8 by 6. And we're going to score at 4 1/8. Don't let that number scare you. This is a Score Pal eighths, which I love. So find 4. One ridge to the right is 4 1/8. Push firmly because this paper is quite heavy, very heavy. You might even want to make a second pass. And then score at 5 1/2. 5 1/2. That's pretty easy. Numbers written right on there, which is really nice. And you still have your organizer, so we're going to add this to pocket A. And now you can see the advantage of having a sorting pocket like this, because all of these pieces have a home, and then it just makes it so much easier. Next up, we need to score each of these 2 by 6 hinges at 1 inch. And if you're left-handed, you may feel comfortable at the 1 inch. If you're right-handed, you may want to put it in the right side of your Score Pal and score at 11. It's the same thing, right? The same results. I've just learned that as a right-handed girl, this side of the trimmer feels better for me. It's a little easier for my left hand to support what I'm scoring. And if you were left-handed, you'll probably find it easier to score these all on the left side. So you can always modify, right? Now I've got all of these hinges going in pocket A. The next piece on the pile grows up to become the sleeve of our box, and it's going to be a full 12 inches long by 6 1/4. So make sure you have the right size piece here. And it's not too bad for scoring. We'll score at 2. Again, this is very heavy duty paper, so make sure you have a nice firm score line. 3 1/2. That's going to be the spine, right? 7 3/4. And 9 1/4. You can see I'm making 2 passes just because this paper is very thick, and this ends up in pocket B. B, bravo. Now we have the other larger sheet of black paper, and we're going to do 2 numbers from the edge of each side here, okay? The first number is 1 3/8, so bear with me. That's 1, and then 1 1/8, 1 2/8, 1 3/8. Again, firmly pressing down. The second number is 2 7/8, so that's 1 notch to the left of the 3. It's 2 7/8. I made so many of these boxes, these trays, to get the perfect measurement, and it just happens to be this weird number. So 1 3/8, 2 7/8, and then rotate the paper again and repeat 1 3/8, 2 7/8, and one last time, 1 3/8, 2 7/8, and there you have the paper that becomes the box. It had to be a pretty big sheet, and I even had to do a little bit of a trick to make it work within my 12-inch maximum size. Oh, now I've got this massive pile of all of these pages. What I could have done is actually scored first and then trimmed. It would have been less scoring, but I wanted to just put the trimmer away. So we're going to score at 4. And this next thing is important. Flip the paper bottom to top and score at 8. So that flip is important because, and we're doing this with all of them, 4, flip, bottom to top, 8. I want 1 score line in each direction. 4 on this side, flip, and then the bump on that side. Continuing on, 4. Now if I had scored first, I would have only had to score twice. Now I had to do it 4 times. Here I have to do it twice again. 4 on each of these soft white papers and 8. So all we're doing right now is just making our accordion pages, 4 and 8. There's really not a whole lot of, you've done all the work. Now it's just coasting to the finish line, honestly, with this fun little project. I love how it turned out. So sweet. 4, and our last one, 8, all done. These end up in pocket A, but really we're gonna address everything in pocket A right now, so you don't even need to bother. So you can take everything else out of pocket A as well. You've got your book cover, your hinges, your decor, all right? So here we have all these inside pages that we scored, and each one has a bump and a divot on the score lines, okay? So what's important here is a general rule. The bump of the score line goes on the inside of the fold, so I'm just gonna bury that score line inside. So remember, bury the bump. And then I'm going to go the other way. There's my other bump, and that would be what I would call an accordion fold, right? Or a Z fold. It looks like the letter Z. Okay. So here's the tedious part, because you have a lot of pages here. When you begin to fold them, and you'll fold all of them the same way, making sure you bury the bumps of the score lines on the inside of the folds. And just continue on with all of the soft white papers and all of the turquoise papers, or aqua rather, I think is what I called it. Always just make sure that before you make a crease that your score line was level and your corners of your pages line up perfectly. You don't want to have a crooked foundation for your book. So just always involves that little flip and the fold in the other direction. And I'll fast forward through the rest of this to save a little time. So now I have all of these pages scored and basically have the same number of each. And then you can decide if you want like white, aqua, white, aqua, white, aqua, white, aqua. All right, so now they're alternating in color. The other thing they need to do is alternate in direction. So think about this. The first page of your book, you want it to open like here. That would be your first book page. All right, then it's going to go alternating from a valley fold to a mountain fold down into a valley. So when I add my next page, the white, I want these two ends to meet to form a valley, okay? The next time I want this page to meet here to form a mountain. Does that make sense? So we want these pages to be peaks and valleys, peaks and valleys, peaks and valleys, peaks and valleys. And since we're making a 4x6 size book, I needed a way to hinge these pages together. And it turns out to be a way that makes it look really great. And the secret is all these little 2x6 hinges that we scored earlier. So what we're gonna do now is fold the hinges and following our rule of burying the bump. So that score line is right in the middle there. Find the bump and then make sure that bump's on the inside. Now this is where I would say that we're doing this is like a hot dog fold, and with the fact that we paid attention to the grain direction of the paper before we trimmed it and scored it, so that this step would produce a really nice looking crease even though it's such a skinny little fold. So these pieces are cooperating with the grain of the paper, so are these, okay? So here's page 1, right? Page 1 opens on the left, and then I'm gonna add page 2, and here we have this valley. I mean, in essence, it doesn't really matter which direction the pages are when we add them, just so that we can make sure we always are alternating. So to make life easy, I'm gonna flip everything over so that I can see my little pages I'm gonna glue together with this hinge. I hope that made sense. And now I'm going to take my bookbinding glue that I have in a needle tipped applicator. You can use any type of adhesive you like. The reason I prefer the wet glue in this situation is because I can adjust the placement after it's on the pages. So if I just marry these up, right, they're just hanging out together. I'm gonna plop this on the top and make sure it's level with the pages, top to bottom. Give it a little squeeze. I'm going to flip this back over and study the seam. Make sure, oh, I would like to move this a little and get it a little closer. And you got to make sure that the page still functions, right? And that's why I liked to have the wet adhesive, because otherwise, if it was a dry adhesive, I wouldn't have any option to go back and move it or change it. And I have a very nice valley fold here connected with a hinge. I hope that makes sense. Next color is going to be aqua, attaching to the soft white. And it's position ready. So these two free edges are going to form the next mountain fold. And then here I'm going to take a hinge. Don't become unhinged. And I'm squiggling this wet glue here. And once this is dry, it's not going anywhere. There we go. Just pop it on while I hold them together. And make sure it's level, that your page itself isn't running off, you know, crooked or anything. That's why the accuracy of your cuts is kind of important. I'm going to flip it over and take a look here. That looks pretty good. Actually, I'd like to have this just a little nicer. Okay. Good. Now I'm continuing on with my alternating book direction here. Next color, soft white. You get the idea, I hope. Just keep working through each connecting page with your hinge until you're done. In the same exact manner. All right, now I have a really good looking book, very colorful and maybe a little bit unruly because it's just kind of all over the place, right? But the cool part is, because I used an even number of pages, my first page and my last page open like a normal book, right? So that's very cool. I don't even need to glue the backs of these pages together. I mean, you could leave it without a cover and then decorate both sides, but I really liked to have this wrapped in a cover. So you can omit this stuff if you want to, but I mean, it's your own book, right? So here is that cover. Now we're going to add a little something to this that I forgot to have you do at the beginning. I'm going to take 2 sheets of our photo mats in black. Okay, so every monthly page kit from Club Scrap includes a dozen pre-cut photo mats. These are 4 1/4 by 6 1/4 in size. And we're going to take 2 of those. And I'll grab my trimmer and I'm going to trim them at the same time. So on the vertical, I'll cut at 3 3/4. And on the horizontal, I will cut at 5 3/4. Get rid of that. And now this is going to be so cool. We have kind of what we need to decorate the front panel and the spine of the book with those photo mats, with a mat and everything. So it looks very beautiful. Now I'm going to position this so that the bumps of the score lines are facing down. This is the outside of the cover. So I can make pretty quick work if I have an ATG gun. This is a wonderful little adhesive applicator that saves a lot of time. And do your best to center this. It's going to be slightly off on the perfect centering because of that weird 1/8 inch measurement we had to use when we scored this. So just be mindful of that. And then I'll add the mat for the outside back cover, centering it as best as I can. I just find it's a little easier to attach these mats when the cover, before the cover is folded and flat, you know, folded and wrapped around the pages. And then we have this spine piece. Now again, you could use your liquid glue for this as well, but now we have a nice spine cover. And this also adds some nice strength to our book. Then I will fold by burying the bumps of those score lines, and my cover is ready to bind my book. So very, very easy thing to do. This again is where I recommend using a wet adhesive because I want to be able to make an adjustment to this if needed. So basically I have my pages ready, my book cover's here. I'm going to apply the glue to the cover in this case. Doesn't have to, but I found this works really well. So I'm just going to go perimeter here and then just squiggle through the middle. Make sure I got that edge. Okay, so now I'm looking at this corner and this corner of the cover, And I'm going to bring my first page, the back of it, to bind with that. It's the same size, okay? And again, the inspiration for the size of this book too came from the wisest use of the paper in the kit, okay? All right, now I'm going to go this direction and flip it over and repeat. So the glue goes on the inside back cover or front cover. It can be either. At this point still there's no directional limitation at this point. Bond those pieces. And what you have here is a lot of room to grow, okay? That's intentional because this book is going to be heavily embellished. Okay, for now we're going to set this little book aside and let's tackle the contents of pocket B. So here we have our pocket with all of this fun stuff inside. I think the first thing we'll make is the tray for our book. So let's take the black 8 by whatever this is, something by 10, 8 something by 10 paper, and place it in front of you so it's in a vertical position. And I've made this type of box with you many times if you've been following my workshops for a while. And I do have a very detailed diagram on page 3 of your instructions that shows exactly where to add the darts and how to remove the corners. But basically this is how I do it. If it's facing vertically and the bumps of the score lines are up, I'm going to count 1, 2 from the third score line, 1, 2, 3. I'm going to enter just to the left of the bump of that score with my scissors and cut all the way until I reach the intersecting horizontal line, the second one, okay? Then I'm going to come in to the right side of that score line, trim all the way up to the second horizontal intersection, and take out this little dart. You see that? Okay, then 1, 2, 3, fourth score line in, I'm going to enter to the left of that bump, cut until I reach the second horizontal line, cutting towards it at an angle. Then from the side, I'm going to remove this second horizontal score line to remove that whole corner. That's gone. Okay, now I have a tab and I have like this sort of flap area. 1, 2 from the left. I'm coming in to take out the whole score line in sort of a V shape or like a little dart, taking out this dart. Then I'm going to go to the right of the first score line. So I'm removing it along with the corner. Okay, so that takes that piece out. So now we got 2 tabs and a short wall. I'm going to take this entire piece and rotate it so it's now the tabs are pointing north, okay? And I'm going to repeat all of that. So I'm going to take out my third score line with a dart, and that's just going up to that second horizontal intersection. Then I'm going to take out the corner and its score lines. So it's basically 2 boxes worth, right? Then I'm going to take the dart out of the second score line and this score line and its corners, okay? And there you have what you need to make a box. Now remember earlier, I don't know if you've caught it, I said I made a lot of these until I got the size just right. And I changed the height of the book spine to make it a little bit larger. So all of that trickled over to this. I made so many samples of this. So if it looks like I've made a lot of boxes, it's because I have. Now we need to fold on these score lines. So I'm going to make these longer folds. So the bumps of the score lines are now facing up, okay, as they have been all along. And I'm going to give a nice crease on these. The longer walls are folding with the grain, and the score lines that we made help us fold against the grain. So the short walls are against the grain, and you can tell when you look at the quality of this fold line versus this one's a little bit more wrinkly, and this one's very clean and smooth. So that's why I like to pay attention to the grain. Now using my dry adhesive, I'm going to apply adhesive to the outer edge of both of these longer flaps, keeping in mind that the piece is still positioned vertically. Then just tuck those walls down, okay? Now you'll see that this wall doesn't quite meet the score line. That's okay. It's a modification I had to make so that this could be made out of a 12 by 12 sheet of paper. Then you turn up the tabs so they're facing the sky, tip in the side walls, and now you have formed 2 sets of corners, right? So next, apply some adhesive to the short flap, both at the top and bottom, okay? So turn in again, and then bring that short flap up and over, making sure you're forming a nice 90-degree angle. If it's not nice, it won't fit well with the sleeve, okay? The sleeve is going to be very snug as well until you like really get it, you know, the paper gets worked in and out of it a few times. Next up, I'm going to grab a ruler, or you could eyeball this, and a pencil. I want to find the center of this short wall. And if it's 1.5 inches high, the center is going to be at 3/4 of an inch. So I'm using my grid ruler to find 3/4 of an inch from the bottom, and centered would put me at 2 1/8 inches from each edge. Now I am using my grid ruler here to its highest potential with its 0 center, which makes it super handy. Otherwise, you're going to be 2 1/8 inch from the edge and from the long edge, and 3/4 of an inch from the bottom. Right there is the center of my lid. So sometimes in classes, if students are really struggling with the measuring, I'm just eyeball it, okay? Don't worry about it. I'm going to take something pointy. This could be a paper piercing tool, an awl. It could be a thumbtack or a push pin. Anything, a needle, anything with a pointy tip. I like to have an awl on hand because I do like to do bookbinding. And notice how I just bored out a little hole all the way through to the inside of my base. But you're going to need a bigger hole, and you need the paper to kind of flow from the inside of the box to the outside. So with the tip of my bone folder, going back in here from the inside, and I'm going to bore out, push kind of the paper back out so that I'm going through several layers here too, my friends, like 3 layers of paper. And there's my little bone folder making an appearance on this other side. Just want to make sure that that hole is large enough to accommodate the screw for the hardware that you'll want for this kit. Now, of course, if you don't have the hardware, please don't make that hole. I suppose I should have told you that at the beginning. Otherwise, you put a button or a charm or something or a brad on there. Okay, so here comes the screw end of my clasp on this side. And it's just going to peek out a little bit here. Get some of that paper out of the way. And then I'll take this knob and screw it on. Now, that's not very tight. And maybe you want to add some paper or embellishing here. That's fine. You can take it out. I also have a Phillips head screwdriver. So if you just hold the knob and twist, you'll be able to tighten that with the Phillips head. That's the kind with the pointy, you know, whatever shape that is. That's a Phillips, okay? There's a standard and Phillips. That I know, okay? That I know. Here's the fit test. There, my book goes right into the box. How cool is that? We're almost done, okay? So all of that, like I said, all of the easy work is left. I mean, we did the hard part when we did the trimming, right? So here I have the sleeve paper. And we have 4 score lines on this to create the sleeve. And there's just a little bit of paper that overlaps here. Oh, that's going to fit really nice, okay? It's going to fit perfectly. So that's the fit test. When you adhere this, I like to do it while it's flat. Okay, so I'm just going to put a little bead line of adhesive on my edge of my sleeve. Now this end here is folded. Here's the first score, here's the second score. So that goes down, okay? Here's the third score, here's the fourth score. I'm gonna fold on the fourth to create my seam while the piece is flat. When I taught this in a class recently, everyone loved the idea of gluing this down when it was flat because it really does work the best. And then when you open it, you've got this perfect rectangle. Again, the fit initially might be a little tight, but you can go ahead and check that and just work with it. And again, if you, hopefully your box making went nice and square on you. Okay, yeah, this is good. This is how I want it. Nice and just a firm slide in, so it's not loosey-goosey, right? It just is nice and tight in there, but yet it'll still slide out, okay? Now, for now, I'm just gonna take this back out. And the more you use this and slide it in and out, the fibers of the paper will loosen up a little bit. So here we have these spine papers and our decorative paper. And the way I had you cut this was so that it would kind of puzzle together again. So what you can do is arrange the pieces so it completes the image. And then I will nest these together with my favorite adhesive, liquid or dry, totally your call. Okay, I've decided that I want this piece right here to be on the front, and I consider the front to be the side without the seam. You have a seam on the back here. And just like when you're gluing this project together, it's easier to do it when it's flat. So this is why it's kind of nice to do it in this situation. So then I'll put this piece here. And I have constructed the trimming document so that the paper will do this no matter what print you're using. It'll be a spine, and then cover, spine, and then the back cover. So if your print has a nice, lovely image, you want to have some continuity with it, you will. Cool, right? Okay, so now we're going to go into pocket C, and you're just going to be so happy to discover that basically in this pocket, you have what you need to decorate the inside pages of your book. You have all of these wonderful panels. So right now in the book, all the pages are plain, right? So you have wonderful assortment of printed panels that are all trimmed so they'll nest perfectly onto the pages of your book. Now you can vary the shifting from plain papers to printed papers as you work your way through. You'll have a lot of prints to work with, but basically you can just decorate this however you wish. You have all of these ribbons. You have all of these embellishments, and they're nice and flat too, so they're perfect for adding to your project. Plus you have everything in pocket D for all of the decor you could possibly imagine. A word about finishing then. So in pocket D, remember you have all of those awesome cut-aparts. So as you're choosing, and your little scraps, again, you don't have a whole lot of scraps though, because I really efficiently trimmed that paper for you. What I suggest you do is sort through your cut-aparts to choose what artwork you would like to have on your cover and on the outside of your box. And once you settle on that, all the rest of the pieces can go inside the book, okay? Again, I kept my other embellishing to a minimum. I covered the spine with one of these printed cut-aparts, and then I just went in and simply decorated a few of the pages because, of course, I do want to add photos to my book, right? So I want room for that, but it doesn't have to be a lot of photos. It can just be the highlights, making this a super nice gift for someone you love. I even decorated the inside base of the box with one of the photo mats and one of the cut-aparts. Now, as I mentioned, these instructions can be recycled. So if you were to substitute 1-for-1 with any other Club Scrap kit, you'll have just the right amount of papers to make another book. And then again, adapting those cut-aparts in the same way. I have this gorgeous book made with our cartography kit. And this is going to be an awesome book to highlight my snowmobiling adventures of the year now that it's finally snowing in Wisconsin and in Upper Michigan. So this is going to be perfect for that. I promise, once you get going on these little books, you're going to want to make a ton of them, or maybe have a nice shelf full of these of all of your favorite adventures as well. Well, thanks for joining me on another crazy bookmaking adventure. I have done all the calculating for you for these projects so that they can run smoothly on rinse, wash, repeat, right? So I do this every month. I'm not sure if you're aware of this, maybe you are by now, but we have a monthly subscription. You can subscribe to our page kit or card kit. So I calculate every trim you need to make to either make 8 layouts or a dozen cards from one kit. The kits are $24.95, a price you absolutely can't beat. They include envelopes in the card kit too. So great value. You know what I equate it to? Sort of like going shopping and seeing an outfit and buying the whole outfit. You don't have to worry about what you're gonna mix and match it with from home. It's the earrings, it's the sweater, it's the pants, the bracelet, the shoes, the socks, everything in the outfit comes in the box, and then I help you put that outfit together. Okay, so we'd love to have you join us here at Club Scrap. Thank you so much for joining me for this workshop. I hope you learned something new today. I'll see you next time.